You're already sinking when the order comes to keep moving. Not shouted, not pleaded, just passed mouth to mouth, a dull imperative carried on breath that smells like rot and fever. The water reaches your knees, then your thighs, then your waist. Every step tears at you. Mud clutches your calves like hands that refuse to let go. If you stop, even for a second, the suction tightens and you feel the slow pull downward, the promise that the ground will take you and never give you back. You haven't slept in 4 days. There is no night here, only darkness pressed flat by fog and the low hiss of water sliding over submerged grass. Your feet are numb, then burning, then numb again. Somewhere ahead, men are crying without sound, mouths opening and closing as they discover that screaming costs more energy than they have left. Some are still standing when they drown, heads nodding forward, chins dipping below the surface as if sleep finally claimed them. They don't fall. Falling would require strength. You keep your eyes on the man ahead of you because if you look down, if you acknowledge how little separates your skin from the black underneath, you will panic, and panic is death. The column stretches forward into nothing, backward too. The army has become a single organism dragging itself through poison. No camps, no fires, no dry ground where the body can reset. Walking is rest. Stopping is extinction. Above the surface, the air is wet and heavy, breeding flies that crawl into nostrils and eyes. Below it, the water stinks of decay and shit and something sweeter that you recognize too late as death. Pack animals bloat and roll onto their sides, legs stiff, bellies breaking the surface like islands. Men climb onto them without ceremony, using the dead as platforms for a few minutes of unconsciousness. When they slip off, no one helps. There are no hands left to spare. You glimpse him ahead, elevated just enough to be unreal. An elephant's back cuts a slow path through the swamp, its legs vanishing into the murk like pillars into fog. On top sits the commander, rigid, swaying with the animal's movement. Hannibal does not look back. He never does. His posture alone is command. Forward, always forward. Up close you would see the right side of his face swollen and weeping, the eye sealed shut by infection, pus tracing pale lines down his cheek. The pain must be constant, a pulse timed with his heartbeat. It would cripple another man. It doesn't slow him. You know this because you can see how his hands grip the reins. They tremble. Fever shakes him. He rides because walking would kill him faster than disease. He rides because he has decided that his body is expendable. Watching him makes something inside you harden. If he can endure that, you tell yourself, you can take one more step. The swamp does not care. Each hour grinds men down into smaller versions of themselves. The front churns the earth into liquid. By the time you reach it, the ground is no longer ground, just a slurry that steals your balance and forces you to fight gravity, with muscles already hollowed out. Your armor drags you lower. You unbuckle it. Others do the same. Protection is meaningless here. Speed is everything, and speed is already gone. This route was chosen on purpose. You understand that now, even if you didn't when the turn was ordered. The easy roads were guarded, dry ground was watched. So you were sent here, into a place that kills without swords. Speed is the only weapon that still works, and speed demands sacrifice. Men, animals, flesh, time. At some point, the pain in your legs becomes distant, like it belongs to someone else. You're aware of your breathing because it sounds wrong, shallow and fast, like an animal cornered. The man behind you stumbles and vanishes. There is a splash, then nothing. You do not turn. Turning would mean stopping. Stopping would mean joining him. Night passes without ending. Dawn arrives without light. The fog never lifts. You march through hours measured only by exhaustion. The swamp climbs into your bones. Your skin puckers and splits. Every cut becomes an open mouth for infection. You know men who will survive this crossing only to die days later when their feet rot away from their legs. That knowledge sits quietly in your head, a future problem you don't have the energy to fear. On the third night, something breaks. A murmur runs through the column as Hannibal slumps forward, weight shifting on the elephant's neck. For a moment the animal slows. You feel it instantly. The ripple of hesitation moving backward like a wave. If he falls, if the forward motion stalls, the army will collapse inward and drown itself. You imagine bodies piling up, the rear pushing, the front sinking, panic detonating like fire in dry brush. But he straightens. One eye opens, the left sharp and furious. The right remains dead. He does not address you. He does not explain. He simply stays upright. Later, you will hear that the infection destroyed the eye entirely, that he let it die rather than stop. Right now, all you know is that the elephant moves again, and so do you. When dry land finally appears, it feels like a lie. The ground firms beneath your feet, resisting instead of yielding. Men drop to their knees and retch. Others laugh until they choke. You crawl forward and press your forehead into dirt that smells like earth instead of decay. Behind you, the swamp keeps its dead. Ahead, the hills of Etruria rise under a pale sky, and with them a realization that sends a shiver through what's left of your spine. You are behind the enemy. The Roman army is not waiting here. Their forts guard the roads you did not take. Their commander sits confident somewhere ahead, certain that no force could have survived what you just did. You imagine his surprise when this ruined, half-blind army materializes where it should not exist. Surprise is a weapon too. Hannibal dismounts stiffly. He sways. Men move to help him and stop themselves at a glance. He stands alone, one eye dead, the other scanning the land as if measuring it for weakness. You see the cost etched into his face. Fever has hollowed him. The loss of the eye has aged him years. He looks like a man who has traded pieces of himself for time, and it works. You march again before the body fully understands what rest is. The swamp has stripped you down to function. There is no room left for doubt. Whatever happens next, you know this much with a clarity that feels like steel. If a commander will rot his own flesh to keep moving, he will not hesitate to spend you. And you will follow him anyway, because he has proven that pain is survivable and stopping is not. Somewhere ahead, Roman soil waits to be broken. The fog comes first, crawling off the lake like a living thing, thick enough to swallow sound. You feel it bead on your skin, cold and wet, clinging to eyelashes, soaking into wool and leather already stiff with mud. Visibility collapses to a few body lengths. Men vanish ahead of you while still breathing. The world shrinks to the scrape of sandals on stone, the jangle of metal, the rasp of breath pulled too fast into tired lungs. The road narrows. On your right, water laps softly, deceptively calm. On your left, the hillside rises steep and wooded, dark shapes stacked on dark shapes. You march because the column marches. There is no sense of a battlefield yet, only movement compressed by geography. This place is wrong. Your body knows it before your mind does. The air feels loaded, as if pressure is building and has nowhere to escape. Someone mutters that the enemy's ahead, retreating. You almost believe it. After the swamp, everything seems survivable. Then the sound comes. Not a shout, not a horn, but a sudden roar of motion, thousands of feet hitting earth at once. The hillside explodes. Men pour down out of the fog, silhouettes turning solid only when they are already upon you. Spears punch into chests at arm's length. Slingstones crack skulls you never saw swing. The first rank folds without understanding why. There is no line to dress, no time to lock shields. The column is still stretched out, bodies pressed tight by the road, and the attack hits the flank like a blade sliding between ribs. You turn left and slam into shields. Turn right and feel cold water surge up your thighs. The lake is deeper than it looks, the bottom slick with mud that steals footing instantly. Men stumble into it under pressure, armour dragging them down. You hear them thrashing, then the sound dulls, muffled and disappears. The fog absorbs everything, screams, orders, panic, until the only thing that feels real is the weight of bodies colliding with yours. This is not a battle. There is no front, no rear, just killing unfolding in all directions at once. You try to raise your sword and can't. There is no room. Bodies press chest to back, shoulder to shoulder, a human mass with nowhere to expand. Heat builds fast. Breath becomes scarce. The air turns thick with sweat and iron, and the sharp stink of fear. Somewhere nearby, a man sobs in short. Animal bursts until a blade opens his throat and the sound cuts off mid-note. You feel the ground shake beneath your feet and for a split second think the world itself is breaking. Later, you will learn it was an earthquake, strong enough to crack walls miles away. Right now it registers as nothing. There is no space in your mind for anything except the next half-second of survival. The Earth can tear itself apart and you would not notice. Time loses shape. Minutes stretch into something viscous and endless. The fog traps heat and dust, turning the space into a choking chamber. You stab blind, feeling resistance give way, then pull free and stab again without knowing who or where. Blood slicks the road, mixing with water and dirt until the surface becomes a skin of red mud that sucks at your feet. Orders do not reach you. They die in the fog. Discipline dissolves into instinct. Men push forward because pressure from behind leaves no alternative. The ones on the edges are cut down methodically. You see it happen. Legs slashed, bodies toppled, killers stepping past the fallen to keep the ring tightening. The wounded are left where they lie, trampled, finished later when movement slows. Efficiency replaces fury. At some point your arms go numb, your grip loosens and tightens without conscious command. You're aware of your heartbeat in your throat, loud and fast, as if it might tear free. The press grows worse. You can no longer turn your head. Faces smear together, expressions frozen in terror or blank exhaustion. A man near you claws at the ground, trying to dig downward, trying to escape by burrowing. His fingers break. He keeps digging until a blade takes the back of his neck. When it ends, it does not feel like victory or defeat. It feels like collapse. The pressure eases first. Bodies sag and slide apart, leaving gaps that feel obscene in their openness. The fog thins. Sound creeps back cautiously. Groans, coughing, the slap of water against shore. You step over corpses without counting them because counting would break something inside you that still needs to function. The lake's edge is choked with armour and limbs. The water is stained dark and slow-moving, carrying pieces of men toward a reeds that do not care. You find a place to sit and cannot stand again for a long time. Your hands shake violently, muscles firing without purpose. When you look at them, they are so caked with blood and grime that the skin underneath seems unreal, like something borrowed. You wipe your face and smear it worse. There is no clean left. Word spreads in fragments. The enemy commander is dead. The army is destroyed. The road ahead is open. None of it lands properly. All you know is that you are alive and many thousands are not. Survival feels arbitrary, almost insulting. Hannibal walks among the survivors later, leaning on a staff, one eye bandaged, the other burning with focus. He does not congratulate. He does not mourn. He studies the ground, the bodies, the shape of the killing as if committing it to memory. This place worked. Geography and timing and patience turned into annihilation. You understand then that this war is being fought as a series of traps, each one built not just to kill bodies, but to fracture minds. The march continues south. Villages burn without resistance, fields are cut down and trampled. Smoke rises behind you in long dirty plumes that stain the sky. You watch civilians flee carrying what they can, eyes wide, mouths open in silent pleas you cannot answer. Hunger gnaws constantly now. Food is taken where found. Discipline hardens. Mercy becomes inefficient. Ahead the land flattens. Heat replaces damp cold. Dust coats everything, drying blood into stiff dark crusts. Rumours circulate of a massive army forming, larger than anything you have faced. The enemy has decided to end this with weight and numbers, to crush rather than chase. You imagine it. Ranks stacked deep, shields locked, a wall of flesh meant to roll forward until nothing stands in its path. The thought does not comfort you. It sharpens the air. You feel it in the way the veterans move, conserving motion, saving strength. In the way Hannibal studies the plain, measuring distances with his eye, imagining shapes that do not yet exist. Something is being built in his head, something that will require perfect timing and men willing to hold when instinct screams to run. The memory of the fog and the lake clings to you. You know now how quickly the world can close in, how easily breath can be stolen by bodies pressing from all sides. As the dust rises and the sun beats down, you sense that the next place will be different but no less final. Not hidden, not sudden, open, brutal, mathematical, and you march toward it because there is nowhere else to go. The heat hits you before the fighting does. It presses down from above, a hard, dry weight that makes every breath feel like it's being taxed. Dust rides the wind and finds its way into your mouth, your eyes, the seams of your armour. The plain stretches flat and open, nothing to hide behind, nothing to soften what is coming. The sun climbs and stays there, merciless, turning metal into something that bites skin. You stand packed into a formation so deep it feels like being buried upright. Shields overlap, backs touch chests. The man in front of you smells of old sweat and fear baked into fabric. Somewhere ahead the enemy is assembling in numbers you cannot fully process. You hear it in the sound, a low collective murmur, tens of thousands shifting their weight at once. This is not pursuit, this is a hammer. When the signal comes, the ground seems to lean toward you. The mass advances, a solid block pushing forward with the confidence of something that believes weight alone guarantees victory. You brace because everyone braces. There is nowhere to step back. The impact rattles your bones. Shields slam together. The air is punched out of your lungs and you gasp, dragging it back in against resistance. At first it feels like it always does. Noise, pressure, confusion. The line bows inward. You move because you are moved. You stab when space opens, retract when it closes. Sweat streams down your spine. The dust thickens, turning sunlight into a dull orange smear. Somewhere above the din, horns cry out, sharp and insistent. Then something shifts. You don't notice it immediately. The centre gives ground, but not in panic. It retreats slowly, deliberately, men stepping back while still fighting, still holding just enough to keep the enemy surging forward. You follow the motion without deciding to. The pressure increases. The bodies behind you push harder, convinced that collapse is imminent and momentum must be maintained. Victory feels close enough to taste, and that taste makes men reckless. Space disappears. You try to lift your sword and your elbow jams into ribs. You twist and collide with another shoulder. The crush tightens. The sound changes, becoming deeper, heavier, like wind forced through a narrow gap. Heat builds rapidly now, trapped by flesh. The dust turns the air into paste. Breathing becomes work. Each inhale scrapes. On the edges, you hear screams that cut off abruptly. You can't see what's happening there, but you feel it. The pressure is no longer equal. It is closing from the sides, compressing inward. Men on the flanks are being hit from angles they can't defend against. The mass responds by pressing tighter, an animal reaction that makes everything worse. You're aware of your heartbeat again, hammering in your ears, faster than seems possible. Panic flares and has nowhere to go. There is no room to run, no room to fight properly. You're locked inside a body made of bodies. The line curves around you. What was once a forward push becomes a pocket. The realization creeps in slowly. Then all at once, you're surrounded. The killing becomes methodical. On the outside, legs are slashed. Men go down without dying, screaming as they are trampled, pinned by weight they cannot escape. The killers move past them, focusing on those still standing. Later, when movement slows, the wounded will be finished. For now, efficiency dictates focus. Inside the press, men begin to suffocate. You feel it in the way breaths shorten, in the way voices rise in pitch. Someone near you tries to climb upward, scrambling over shoulders, driven by pure animal terror. He gets halfway before a blade takes him under the arm and he slumps back down, dead weight adding to the load. Your vision narrows, spots dance. You can't tell if it's from heat, fear, or lack of air. The sun is gone, replaced by a ceiling of dust and helmets. The world reduces to inches. You shove, not to advance, but to create space to breathe. It doesn't work. The mass absorbs your effort and gives nothing back. You drop your shield because it's trapped against your chest, crushing your sternum. Without it, you can draw a deeper breath, but you're naked now, exposed to blades you cannot see coming. A sword scrapes across your arm, shallow but hot, and you barely register it. Pain is background noise. Men begin to do unthinkable things. You see fingers clawing at the dirt, trying to dig holes to put faces into, to find air in the ground. Some succeed briefly, suffocating themselves intentionally to escape what's happening above. Others cut at their own legs, trying to drop out of the crush. Blood pools around ankles, slick and warm. Time stretches and breaks apart. There is no sense of hours passing, only cycles of pressure and release, of noise swelling and ebbing. The dust turns everything the same colour. Skin, metal, earth. Red is the only thing that stands out, dark and everywhere. At some point your knees buckle. You fall, and the fall does not end. Bodies pile over you instantly. The weight is crushing, absolute. Your chest cannot expand. You gasp and get nothing. Darkness pushes in from the edges of your vision. You think of nothing coherent. There is no prayer, no memory, just the urgent, overwhelming need for air. Then the pressure shifts again. It lifts enough for you to wrench yourself sideways, crawling over something soft that might have been a man seconds ago. You roll and gulp air so hard it burns. You don't stand. Standing would make you a target. You crawl, dragging one leg, slipping in blood and dirt, following any gap that opens, any momentary loosening of the ring. When sound finally drops away, it feels unnatural. The killing doesn't stop so much as exhaust itself. The mass has nowhere left to compress. Bodies fill the space. Those still alive are scattered and stunned, moving like sleepwalkers through a landscape of the dead. You stagger upright and immediately retch, dry heaves tearing at your throat. The plain is carpeted with corpses, layered and twisted. Weapons lie where hands lost strength. The sun beats down on it all, indifferent. Hannibal rides the perimeter, expression unreadable, eye scanning the geometry of the slaughter. This is what he built. A space where numbers became a liability, where momentum turned into a trap, where men killed each other simply by being too close together. He does not cheer. He does not gloat. He studies. You understand then that this place will never leave you. The feeling of being pressed into nothing, of air becoming currency, of the world closing in from all sides, this will return in dreams, in crowds, in narrow streets. You will carry it as long as you breathe. As the sun slides lower, shadows lengthen across the field. The dust settles, the silence deepens, and in that silence, you feel the weight of what has been done settle onto your bones, heavier than armour, heavier than fear. You are alive. You're not sure what that means anymore. The victory does not feel like release. It hangs over the camp like heat that refuses to dissipate, heavy and sour. The dead lie so thick beyond the perimeter that the ground seems reshaped by them, a new terrain of limbs and armour and blackening blood. You move through it carefully, not out of reverence, but because slipping would mean falling into something you cannot bear to touch again. Night brings no cool. Fires crackle, fed by scavenged wood and broken wagons, throwing uneven light across faces hollowed by exhaustion. Men speak in low voices or not at all. Some laugh too loudly, too sharply, the sound snapping under its own strain. Others sit motionless, staring into nothing, hands still flexing as if around weapons that are no longer there. You clean your blade because habit demands it. The metal resists, gore dried into grooves. Each scrape releases a smell that churns your stomach. When it's done, the sword looks ordinary again, which feels wrong. You wrap it and set it aside, afraid of how easily it can be returned to usefulness. Hannibal calls a council, not a ceremony, just a gathering of men who have survived long enough to be useful. He stands without elevation, leaning slightly, weight favouring his good side. The bandage over his dead eye is stained through. Fever still rides him, visible in the sheen of his skin, but his voice is steady. He speaks of roads, of cities, of pressure points. He speaks of not going north. The words ripple through the group, subtle but immediate. Some stiffen, others exhale. Everyone has thought it since the field went quiet. The city is close, the gates are real, the enemy is broken. This feels like the moment the blade should be driven home. Hannibal does not explain himself in grand terms. He talks about walls and time, about stone that eats men, about supplies that do not exist, about an army that has just killed itself into exhaustion. He talks about discipline not as virtue but as physics. Bodies can only do so much before they fail. Momentum is not infinite. You listen and understand, even if something in you wants the march to end at the enemy's heart. You have seen what happens when pressure builds without escape. You have felt it in your lungs. He is avoiding another kind of suffocation, slower and harder to escape. The decision is made. The army turns south. The days that follow are strange. You move through land that no longer resists you. Towns open their gates or empty themselves ahead of your arrival. Supplies appear. Food fills bellies that have known only hunger for months. Wine flows too freely. Discipline stretches thin. Men who survive the press of death indulge in softness with the desperation of the starved. Hannibal allows it, briefly. He watches. Then he tightens the leash. Punishments return. Formations are enforced. The indulgence stops. Comfort is treated as another enemy, one that dulls edges and invites mistakes. The veterans grumble but comply. They have learned the cost of disobedience. The enemy changes too. They no longer meet you in the open. They hover at a distance, shadows on ridgelines, columns of smoke where crops once stood. They burn their own fields ahead of you, leaving blackened earth and empty granaries. The land begins to starve you intentionally. Marching becomes an exercise in restraint. You see food and are forbidden to take it. You see farms abandoned too early, animals driven off, wells fouled. Hunger creeps back, quieter but persistent. The war has shifted shape. It is no longer about sudden death but slow erosion. You feel it in your body. Old wounds ache, infections linger. The army thins not from battle but from sickness, from fatigue, from men simply failing to wake. They are buried quickly or not at all. The pace does not slow for them, it cannot. Hannibal adapts. He always does. He moves like water around obstacles, slipping through valleys at night, vanishing from places the enemy thought pinned. Once you watch fires climbing a mountainside in the dark, thousands of points of light swaying and scattering. The enemy moves to block that path, convinced the army is trying to escape upward. By morning, you are gone, miles away, having passed through a gap left unguarded. The trick works because it plays on expectation. Because the enemy believes fear looks like retreat. The years stretch. The land becomes familiar and hostile at once. You recognize hills, rivers, towns by the scars left on them. The army becomes a permanent presence, an occupying force that does not conquer so much as linger. You fight skirmishes, ambush patrols, take forts that mean little. The great decisive clash never comes again. You age faster than time accounts for. Your hair thins. Lines etch into faces once smooth. The veterans who crossed mountains and swamps are fewer now, replaced by locals who do not share the same discipline. The same memory of hell survived together. They fight well enough, but their loyalty is rented, not forged. Messages arrive from home rarely and badly. Reinforcements promised do not come. Gold arrives in amounts that feel insulting. You understand the truth without it being spoken. You're winning battles for a city that is not fully committed to your survival. The enemy, meanwhile, learns patience. They refuse risk. They trade land for time. They watch and wait, letting distance and hunger do their work. They accept losses if it means avoiding annihilation. The war becomes quieter, colder. One morning, a sack is thrown over the rampart of a captured town. It hits the stone with a wet thud and splits. A head rolls free, hair matted, eyes open and dull. Recognition is immediate and devastating. This was not a kill meant to remove a threat, it was meant to be seen. Hannibal looks at it for a long time. He says nothing. When he finally turns away, something has shifted, not broken, hardened. The army feels it, a subtle tightening, a collective understanding that a door has closed somewhere far away. Orders change soon after. Preparations are made for a journey no one wants. Horses are culled. Supplies are rationed for transport rather than conquest. The direction reverses, not toward the enemy's heart but toward home. The departure is quiet. There is no ceremony, no speech, just the slow dismantling of a presence that has haunted this land for years. You march away from places that know your name, leaving behind scars that will take generations to fade. On the coast, ships wait. You board with the numb compliance of someone too tired to question fate. The sea smells clean compared to blood and dust. The horizon opens. It should feel like relief. It doesn't. You watch the shoreline recede and think of all that was done here, all that was survived, and how none of it ended the way it was supposed to. The war has not resolved. It has merely shifted again, compressing toward a final shape you cannot yet see. As the sails catch wind and the land shrinks into a dark line, You feel the weight of years settle fully onto your shoulders. You are alive, still. You have endured things that should have killed you. And somewhere ahead, the last calculation waits, patient and inevitable. The war is coming home. The ground at home feels wrong under your feet. It is familiar in ways that unsettle you, firm where you expect it to give, dry where you brace for mud. The air carries salt and dust instead of rot. After years of foreign soil, every step here feels like trespassing. The army assembles on the plain with less ceremony than you imagined during the long return. There are no cheers waiting, no sense of rescue. Just walls, politicians, and an anxious quiet that presses inward. You realise how thin you look reflected in polished shields, how the years have stripped muscle and replaced it with wire and scar tissue. You are veterans of a war that never loved you back. Across the field, the enemy forms with precision that mirrors your own. Their lines are clean, disciplined, almost elegant. They have studied you. You can feel it in the way their formations breathe, opening and closing deliberately. This is not fear, this is preparation. Hannibal rides the line one last time. He is older now in a way that goes beyond years. The fever is gone, but its legacy remains etched into him. One eye dead, the other sharp and searching. He looks at you not as expendable pieces, not as symbols, but as material with known limits. He knows exactly how much strain you can take because he has taken more. When the signal comes, the earth answers. The elephants surge forward, massive shapes blotting out space, their feet pounding a rhythm that vibrates through your bones. You have seen them break men before. You have felt the ground tremble as they turned courage into chaos. This time is different. The noise hits first. Horns, trumpets, a wall of sound so sudden and violent it seems to strike physically. Some of the beasts falter, ears flaring, panic rippling through them like electricity. They charge anyway, driven by pain and confusion. You advance behind them, counting breaths, conserving motion. The enemy line does not brace the way you expect, it opens. For a split second, your brain refuses to accept it. Gaps yawn where shields should be. Lanes stretch back through the formation, like wounds left deliberately unstitched. The elephants barrel into them, following the path of least resistance, their momentum suddenly harmless. Men step aside with cold precision, javelins flashing into soft flanks as the beasts pass through, bleeding and screaming, no longer weapons but liabilities. The ground shakes again, but now it carries dread. Cavalry clashes on the wings, fast and brutal. Dust rises in thick curtains. You engage infantry head-on, steel meeting steel, the familiar chaos returning. This part you know, this part you can survive. Then you feel it. The shift in pressure, subtle but unmistakable. The enemy's horse has broken through. You hear it before you see it, the roar of hooves circling wide. A memory slams into you with the force of a blow, the plain, the crush, the air stolen by bodies pressing inward. The circle tightens. Orders are shouted, swallowed by noise. The formation tries to adjust, but fatigue has dulled reflexes. Men who once held under impossible pressure now falter. You fight hard, efficiently, cutting where needed, conserving movement, but the space keeps shrinking. This time you are on the inside. The realization spreads like cold through your gut. You feel the enemy at your back, the sound of shields locking behind you. The press builds, slower than before but relentless. Heat spikes, breath shortens, panic scratches at the edges of your mind. Hannibal is somewhere ahead, but distance means nothing now. The geometry has turned against you. The same logic that once annihilated armies is being applied with ruthless clarity. There is no cruelty in it, just efficiency. Men begin to go down, not all dead, many trapped beneath weight. You step over them because there is no alternative. The dust thickens, turning the sun into a pale disk. Sweat pours into your eyes. Your grip slips and tightens again. The circle closes fully. You fight because that is what remains. You fight because surrender has already been denied by the press of bodies. You fight because stopping would mean being crushed under your own. Somewhere, a horn sounds again, and the pressure eases just enough for movement. The enemy does not slaughter indiscriminately. They know when the outcome is sealed. They tighten and loosen, guiding collapse rather than rushing it. You stumble, wounded but upright, and find yourself pushed outward rather than inward. When it ends, it feels abrupt, like a muscle finally tearing after too much strain. You stand among survivors who do not speak. The field is littered again, but this time the shapes and colours feel inverted, wrong. You have crossed some invisible line. Hannibal dismounts slowly. He looks at the dead, at the living, at the enemy commanders who already turn away to manage aftermath rather than glory. He understands before anyone says it. This was the last calculation, and it has been solved against him. He orders retreat. Not chaos, not flight, just withdrawal, disciplined and limited. The enemy allows it. They do not need more blood to prove the equation. Back within the walls, the city reacts with a mixture of relief and accusation. The war is lost. Terms arrive quickly and without mercy. Ships burned, tribute measured, silence imposed. You listen without emotion. The words feel like paperwork compared to what your body remembers. Time fractures after that. Some of you are dismissed, others reassigned. The army dissolves not with ceremony but with neglect. You drift into civilian life carrying reflexes that no longer fit. Crowds make your chest tighten, enclosed spaces steal breath. You wake from sleep clawing for air that is already there. Hannibal does not linger. He takes a role that smells of administration and restraint. Even here he reforms, cuts corruption, rebuilds. It terrifies those who defeated him more than his armies ever did. One night he is gone. Years pass. The world shifts. New wars rise and fall. You hear rumours of him moving east, a shadow offering advice no one fully heeds. A ghost used for prestige, ignored for substance. When news finally comes of his death, it is delivered quietly, almost with relief. Poison. A ring. A choice made calmly, rather than granted by enemies. You imagine him as you last saw him, scarred, controlled, refusing to be crushed by a closing circle. You understand that kind of decision. The war ends on maps and treaties, but not inside you. It lives in muscle memory, in breath held too long, in the instinct to measure space and exits. You survived the swamp, the fog, the press, the long erosion of years. You survived victory and defeat. That survival is not triumph, it is simply continuation. When you walk now, you feel the ground. You notice how firm it is, how it holds. You breathe deliberately, counting each inhale, each exhale, grateful for the space around your ribs. The world remains dangerous, compressed by forces you cannot control. But for the moment, there is air, and you are still standing.